Speaking on the obturator internus muscle here, it will be originating on the inner rim of the obturator foramen, and that is where it gets its obturator in its name from. If we follow these fibers, we've already talked about how its tendon will insert onto the greater trochanter of the femur, and superior gemellus will also insert through that same tendon along with the muscle below it, the inferior gemellus. Obturator internus is also going to be involved with lateral rotation of the femur itself, and it is going to be innervated by the obturator internus nerve. Just below it here, we have the inferior gemellus, which is originating on the ischial tuberosity, and you can see the ischial tuberosity sticking out right here. So we see it originating on that feature. Following the fibers, we already mentioned it will be inserting onto the greater trochanter through the obturator internus tendon. Inferior gemellus will also be involved with lateral rotation of the thigh. Inferior gemellus is going to be where we see a little bit of a difference in the nerve that's innervating it, as it is actually innervated by a branch of the nerve that innervates the muscle below, the quadratus femoris nerve. Moving on to our four-sided muscle here, this quadratus femoris, this also originates on the ischial tuberosity. Follow the fibers over here. We can't really see where it's inserting, but it's actually going to insert on the posterior aspect of the femur between the greater and lesser trochanter. So if we were to follow this, you can see there's greater trochanter right there. It's inserting just about right here underneath it, so in between that greater and lesser trochanter. What the quadratus femoris is mainly responsible for is also lateral rotation of the thigh, and it has its own nerve to the quadratus femoris muscle that is going to be innervating it. So the nerve's name is just the nerve to quadratus femoris. Working on anterior hip, we have our first muscle called tensor fasciae latae. Now, this is a little muscle on the side or front of the hip here, and it's actually an insert into something called the iliotibial band or iliotibial tract. If you've heard of this before this course, you've probably heard of it as the IT band or IT tract. And IT stands for iliotibial, and it tells you kind of where it's going from the ilium out to the tibia bone. We're also going to have pectineus muscle, which it will insert onto that pectineal line of the femur. That's where that feature of the femur got its name from, because this muscle right here is going to be inserting onto it. Pectineus is a really tiny muscle that's found right around the groin region. We also have a muscle group called Iliopsoas. So when you use this term Iliopsoas, you're actually referring to two separate muscles, the psoas major and the iliacus. These two muscles, their muscle bellies, kind of where they're originating, won't be seen till unit 3, but in this unit where we're going to see them is as they insert together, because they both insert on the same tendon to the lesser trochanter of the femur. So because in this unit, we're only going to see that insertion point, we're just going to refer to them together as iliopsoas. So as we take a look here, we see psoas major right here, and psoas major is actually going to be originating on the transverse processes in the bodies, which we'll discuss parts of the vertebra in a future unit, but it's originating on these lumbar vertebra, those specific features. Now, if you follow it down, you'll see it insert to that lesser trochanter right there. And what psoas major is responsible for is it's actually going to be doing flexion of the thigh. So it's going to bring this thigh bone, the femur, upward. And by itself, it's also going to cause lateral rotation of the thigh and also flexion of the vertebral column here. Iliacus will originate on the inner surface of the ilium and part of the sacrum, and it's also still going to insert on the lesser trochanter through the same tendon. And what it does is it causes flexion and lateral rotation of the thigh. Now, iliacus will be innervated by the femoral and lumbar nerves, whereas psoas major will be innervated only by the lumbar nerves.